on camera.
It's a liability issue for us to use our personal vehicle until the city. I would imagine that would be the same thing if we had just borrowed.
Call the Verne City Council meeting to order. If we can all please rise together. Join our pledge of allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilmember Carter. Here. Councilmember Davis.
Still here.
Councilmember Hepburn.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rosales.
Here.
And Mayor Kendrick.
Here. We had a brief discussion up here about the flag and the location of it. It's supposed to be on your left as you face the front, and it is, but the people on my right can't see it. So we are going to be working on making sure that we address that issue, so no matter who is here, you'll be able to see the American flag and see it when we do our pledge of allegiance. So whoever brought that up, thank you very much. We're going to go off the schedule, and we are going to go to item 5, consent calendar. Can I have a motion,
I'll
please?
move to accept the consent calendar.
Second. Vote, please. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go back to item 4, and this is under announcements and presentations. And the reason that we did the item 5 first is this approved the Downtown Business Improvement District's ability to donate, because anytime it's over $5,000, it needs council approval. So at this time, I would like to invite the Downtown Business Improvement District. And Craig, is this you that's going to do this? And Chris? Craig is our president of the Downtown Business Improvement District and does a great job.
Do you want that over there?
No, just.
Mary Ann, Chris?
So, we were here a couple of weeks ago talking about our budget and expected plan of action for the next year. And we talked quite a bit about the wine walk and the impact that the wine walk and the beer walk has had on the Old Town to be able to finance improvements, to be able to contribute more money towards the projects that the city has been involved in, like the tree lights and other amenities downtown, the new improvements to Monero Square. But also, one of the best parts of this job is we get to give away some money. And we decided 7 years ago when we first started the wine walk that we wanted to not just try to make it something that would promote Old Town, but that would also give back to the community. And so each year, each of these events has selected a Laverne-based charity. And you know, there's a lot more than most people realize that are based in Laverne that really could use support. And so we've selected a different charity each year. And we've designated a portion of our proceeds, the 20% or a little bit more than that of our net proceeds. And I believe to date with this check today, we're well over $20,000 in proceeds back to community groups. I think close to $25,000 at this point. So that's something that makes all of us feel good. And this year it was especially gratifying because we've always had a problem that obviously the whole point of these events is to get new people into our shops, businesses, restaurants. Unfortunately, for putting on the event, we have all owner-operated shops, businesses, and restaurants. And so they're busy taking care of the customers. And we have a hard time finding people who are not tied down to help run the event. This year, we found an excellent group that was able to not only be a great partner from a donation standpoint, but they were a major partner for us in helping putting on the event. I'd like Chris to share a little bit about that.
After attending many city council meetings and hearing the need of the community, one group just jumped out at us this year, and that was CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. And I talked to Jennifer about partnering with her and getting some help, and then at the same time realizing was there a need there, and there is. They're at the stage where they're developing a supply need for the emergency response that will come. And so we're very proud to have CERT as a partner, and it might actually work that CERT going forward becomes part of an ongoing partnership with maybe the beer walk and the wine walk, because they do such a great job at helping, give some direction, whatnot, for the safety of the public that's on the sidewalks and going from business to business. So today we're proud to present, and I guess Jennifer, do you want to come on up? Jennifer Christensen, who's the director of CERT. We have a small donation, I think it's right.
It's, Nikki Rem is over here.
Oh, yeah.
She's on our board. Major part of putting on all the activities, social media, all that stuff that we try to do. Marianne Stark is also a longtime Old Town business owner and a member of our board, along with Chris and Jason Miller of the University of Laverne. So why don't we have our recipients come on up?
Yeah. Does all CERT want to come on up?
I want
Yeah, come
all
on up.
of our Wine Walk volunteers, all of our,
Sure.
all of our CERT members are here. Every one of our volunteers who signed up showed up. And they came out and they helped and made it possible.
I'd like to present this check for $6,000.
Don't spend it all at once.
Yes.
Stand in there now. Hold on. Everybody look at the camera. Got one?
Yeah.
All righty. So one of the requirements is you have to give us a photo of you trying to cash this check. But in case that doesn't work, here's one a little bit more normal size. Thank you all.
If you're gonna frame one of those, frame the bigger one.
Before you leave, CERT members, don't leave yet, please. We just had, spent about an hour to an hour and a half with planning commission applications. We had 22 applicants for 2 positions. So, and you kind of look at the people and say, what have they done in the community and so forth. And there's a lot of people that rise to the top. Craig was a city council member for 8 years, Craig?
14, Don.
14.
Apparently they went faster back then.
It was actually 8, it's just grown. But one of the things Craig has done, not just his public service with the city council, is he has never stopped giving to this community. And being president of the Downtown Business Improvement District, he has raised that group to an amazing level. And you can see what happened tonight, that the beer walk will come in September, but the wine walk now seven times almost $25,000 back to the community, plus all of us having a wonderful time, at the wine walk. And then here we are, another group that's serving our community and just making it better. And if we ever have a disaster, these folks, along with our police and of course our fire, that CERT comes under, is going to be right there helping all of us be safe and giving us the supplies and the needs that we need in a disaster. So we are as good as the people that live here. And this is a great example of those people. So thank you very much. Thank you, Craig, Chris, Mary Ann.
take a minute for those that would like to leave. Thank you, Jennifer. Chuck Kinsey.
Okay, we'll go back on the agenda to item 6. And the first item is an agreement, service agreement with Lincoln Financial approving the city's new plan with Mass Mutual. And with that, JR.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The City of Laverne sponsors a deferred compensation and defined contribution plan under the Internal Revenue Code. The plans provided through Lincoln Financial are separate from CalPERS and don't require any additional compensation or contributions from the city. Due to the complexity of the investment process and associated fiduciary responsibilities that go along with those types of plans, the city contracted with SFG to basically do a full-fledged audit of the contract that we had with Lincoln, the plan lineups and the investment opportunities that are there, and then also the fees that are charged to the participants being the employees, as well as retirees that are still have funds in those plans. Aside from reviewing the current plans, SFG also compared the information obtained through the audit with other record keepers to determine whether the incumbent plan fees were reasonable through a request for proposal process. So they did a full RFP with multiple different people, like Mass, Mutual, Voya, those different types of companies also submitting proposals. Mass Mutual, Voya, and Lincoln provided the most competitive pricing results. Staff and SFG presented these RFP results to the different employee groups, and we also sent notice to the retirees that are still participants of those plans. Based on the RFP results and feedback from the employee groups, Mass Mutual was tentatively selected pending City Council approval, and that's kind of what we're looking for tonight is direction to move forward with that. It'll be about a 90-day process once the City Council takes action to actually put the final agreements together, the contract documents, and then transfer funds into a different record keeper. The benefit of this is that the participants are really going to benefit from this a lot. We're looking at, combined with the different investment lineups and the lower fees and those types of things, that in year one, participants could see a $180,000 benefit from what they're currently doing with Lincoln today. Based on there not being a fiscal impact to the city and the positive impact to participants, staff is recommending the City Council adopt Resolution 1942, triggering that 90-day period where we're adjusting everything and finalizing the contract documents. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Any questions?
I mean, part of me as a mathematician would like to be funny at this time, but I won't. About how big is the group? Because you're saying it's going to increase, the value will increase 188,000. So roughly, that's how much per participant.
So
It's not a good comparison, I get it, but I'm just saying, this is how many people participate in these deferred benefit programs.
most employees do. What makes it tricky is that we also have retirees that are still with that, and some of those retirees have significant accounts, right? So, obviously those that have more money in there are gonna be the ones that benefit. And then there's also, what makes it tricky to answer your question is there's two 457 plans, because there's kind of a grandfathered plan, I guess is the best way to put it. And those people have different amounts and different percentages on what they were getting. But then what we found is that they were also paying higher fees to counterbalance that.
Okay, so rather than my averaging attempt, which I get is purely wrong, it's just, I think it'd be helpful to note how many people are participating in these programs. Not necessarily the weighted or average or anything like that, but we're not talking one or two people, we're talking many people.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Joanne, she's here from SFG, she knows more about the ins and outs of how many and what, so I'll point to her, because I would guess it's gonna be over 100.
Right,
Oh, yes.
that's the ballpark I want to know. It isn't just 2 or 3 people, it's a more than 100 people
We have a little
participating?
over 200.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
So we expect, depending upon account
Right,
size,
right.
an average about 1,800
Right,
person.
but this is benefiting 200 of our employees and/or former employees?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Questions, okay. Is there, we can either take a motion?
Public comment?
Okay. Is there anybody that would like to address this issue? Okay? Okay, great.
I just want to say that I really appreciated JR and also staff for going out to other sources to find out if you can do better with other companies. And I think that's a very good idea. Transparency, but also the fact that you're going competitive where you're saving money for the employee groups in the sense and they're going to make more money on the return. And I think that's a great idea. So I commend you on that. Very good job. Thank you.
This started, how long ago?
Was it a year and a half ago that we had the meeting with you and Councilmember Davis?
That it was brought to my attention that we could do better, and so we had a meeting with our finance committee, and we certainly could. And we've been working toward this for quite a while now, and this is the benefit to over 200 current and past employees. I think this is a great thing. So, Mayor, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 1942.
Second. Vote, please. Thank you. Okay, we're going to item B, under other matters, formation of active transportation committee.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll take this item. As the council will remember, back in March, we had a study session on the matter of forming an active transportation committee, and that came out of a recommendation, I think, back in December, or at least they asked that we consider adding such a committee. At that point, staff discussed with council the makeup, the composition, the focus of what the committee should take on, and council provided some direction back on what some of those elements are that they wanted to be corrected and then brought back for final approval. Staff has done that, and the resolutions that are before you put in place the Active Transportation Committee. One of the significant changes that was recommended by council was to go from what was a 7-member to a 9-member committee, with 5 of those members serving from the public. One of the suggestions that staff has, and obviously the council will have to give direction on how to populate that committee, especially with public members, is we currently have a active transportation working group, if you would, and 3 of those members are residents and would be eligible to serve in those capacities. They have been asked and would be interested in being elevated into this role, so that would take 3 to 5 if that would be council's direction. We would then suggest advertising for the final 2 spots, similar to what we did for planning commission, and take a list of interested individuals to then serve, and we would do an appointment process for that. In addition to that, it does recommend that the council provide 2 representatives to serve as the council representatives to this 9-member group as well. And we would just seek direction on who those members of the council should be, whether you do it now or bring that back at a later date, but seeking your direction in that regard. Just for the benefit of the audience, the impetus for this group kind of came out of wanting to give more public input in the area of active transportation, but also recognizing that through the parallel to the general plan effort, we were also adopting an active transportation element. And one of the major charges of this group will be to prioritize the projects that will come out of that, and how those can also dovetail into some of the other street-related projects and complete street policies that we do, that the council has charged at least staff with looking at. So this would be a recommendation body, then back to the full council for consideration. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. The other thing that it does do is it does add the committee members to the conflict of interest codes, which is required that they report similar to all other commissions or committees that exist in the city. Happy to answer any questions.
One question I have, would you explain to how often they would meet for the public so they'd understand this committee?
Yeah, I think generally we have it in here as once a quarter, but it can be more often. I imagine that initially it will need to be more often. They'll need to establish the bylaws, the chair kind of give guidance and shape, but then I can see it happening at least once a quarter, if not once every other month. So that's going to kind of flow based on you.
Well, and with that, this committee has been working with Dan and with planning for so long. It's been over 5 years that I know that 3 of these members have been involved. I would like to see these 3 members be on it, since they've already shown that interest. They can be working on the plan along this whole process. So those 3 I would like us to appoint, and then open it up for the other 2 open seats to the public and do interviews.
I'm in concurrence with Councilmember Carter.
So also, I think it's a great idea. They put a lot of effort and work into it.
And then, did you also want to, at this time, decide the 2 members?
Let's just wait till let's open up the public, let them have a chance. I know Roy want to come up. We're going to open it up to the public for comments. This is been a struggle for Laverne because we have opened this up and formed something new that we haven't formed in probably 30 years. So it's exciting for us to be able to go in a new direction. So anybody would like to make a comment on this? Yeah.
Good evening. I think my thought, I'm just kind of like gathering all this together, and I know that we just had the meeting a little while ago with 25 people who applied to be part of the planning commission, a big group of people. Is there a way to potentially, of that 9, I mean, if you want to appoint 3, great, but just throw it out there and see how much response you get from the public before you kind of narrow it down. You might end up with
Well, that's
more.
what we said, that's
Yeah.
what the recommendation is, to put
But
it
only
out
for
there.
2.
For 2, because the other 5 are staff members that are part of it now.
Okay.
So it's on 5 community members would be part of this group. But the 3 have been working on it for 5 to 7 years already and understand the makeup of the city streets, what we've worked on already, the grant that we received. So that's why it's really, I'm encouraging those 3 to sit on this committee, but then have 2 open seats.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, bring it back up to the dais. I agree with the 3 people. I think they have been working tirelessly for years, because we have this active transportation committee. There's also been a direction in our new general plan that we have transportation for not just people walking and people in cars, but all forms of transportation. Bicycles, skateboards, you name it. Tricycles, strollers, yeah.
Jogging shoes.
Jogging, yeah. So, and for everybody to be safe. So, this is an ongoing, and this is just a continuation of making this city the best it can be in that mode at all times. One of the things that we did in our consent calendar was we're moving forward with baseline and also fruit in the paving process, so we can make sure that our grant funding is going to align with the construction or rehab, the 2 inches that are coming off of baseline with the new rubberized, quieter materials. So anybody living on baseline or close to baseline probably going to have a little quieting effect. So that's all part of what we're talking about as we move forward. Yeah, go ahead.
Back when we did talk about this, I think I was one of the big proponents of having residents more involved in our, city government, to have more transparency, have more involvement, have more decision-making on how to move forward, no matter if it's streets or buildings or whatever the situation may be, finances, that one at a time. And I think this is a great start because we are changing. Our streets are changing. Our grants are out there for, our striping and bike zones and walking paths. So I think it's really, really good that our residents are going to be involved in this, and I think this is one of many, hopefully, to come, that more input from, as we did our planning commission with the, how many, 25 or 26 people that applied, it's like, okay, people are interested, make a difference in the community, and I think it's really, really wise, and looking at others. And of that, I would like to put my name in to be on the committee.
I guess I'll go next. I want to say a couple of things. One is that, yeah, we had the idea of 3 committees several months ago, last fall, early December-ish timeframe. And so this is the first one, and I'm really happy about it. I want to thank the council for increasing the number of residents to being the majority of the group, which I think is going to be helpful in this. Pam, to your comment, this committee is going to be first, and it's going to need to get up and running very quickly, which is why we want to have the 3 that have been engaged, because there's some grant money out there that we need to be going after really fast. This isn't going to be the last committee, though, because I expect that other committees will be similarly constructed, so there's going to be plenty of opportunity for residents to be fully engaged. And after seeing the room filled this afternoon for Planning Commission, I'm excited about having opportunities to engage our residents in meaningful conversation and work. So all of that's really good. Lastly, I guess I would like to nominate Robin to be part of this committee as well.
Well, thank you. Mayor, I would like to nominate you because you are an avid bike rider. I mean, I've been involved with the bike coalition for some time. I have an interest in it too. So it's really up to, I'd like for sure to see you there.
Thank you.
Tim, if you want that, I mean, it's, you or I, doesn't matter. I mean, we need representation on there, so.
Yeah, I'd like to, for the fact that I was one of the pushers of it, and council all agreed to it because we knew it was a need. So I think Amber will do a good job. I would like to be on with that.
Yes, but Mayor most definitely needs to be on it. I'd like to see you, so I nominate you, then and Tim.
You're going to step down.
I'll step down.
Thank you.
I'll be an alternate, how about that?
You're not already on white back.
I'll make that
So
motion.
you're voting on the 2 resolutions as well?
Yes, it's a package deal.
Resolution number 1936 and 1937, and make sure that Mayor and Tim are the representatives of the city council.
Who's seconded?
You.
I am, all right, I second.
It's been a meeting before this
Well,
already. We're a little worn out.
This is transparency at its finest. I'm just trying to keep
And
up
we're
with
on
the
film.
group right
We're on
now.
film.
And we will begin advertising where we at now, probably the first part of July, and so we'll be bringing back for another round of interviews or how that will work depending on the response we get.
Great.
to the council.
Hopefully not quite as intense as planning
You
commission.
never know.
Yeah, you never know, it's true.
Okay, we'll move to item C. This is the Law Enforcement Support Services LA Impact. Nathan?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Staff is recommending that we enter into a supportive services agreement with LA Impact. This in regard to the federal asset forfeiture funds. This is a little bit of a complex agreement, so I do want to kind of go through and try to hit the highlights of it, and then come back and try to answer any detailed questions. The Chief Paz can obviously jump in on any PD-specific questions, and we do have Rigoberto Garcia, who's the Executive Director of LA Impact, present with us. So if you have any specific questions on the task force side, we can also get into those. As you know, Laverne PD has been a partner with LA Impact for over 10 years, so this is a strong partnership between the city and LA Impact. We also handle the accounting and treasurer services for LA Impact on a separate agreement. So this is a partnership between the city that exists, and we're talking about an additional agreement here. The need for this additional agreement is a direct result of federal changes in how asset forfeiture funds are allocated and dispersed to participating agencies. The changes that they made to their guidelines essentially disallow payments to task force task forces in general. And this affected many task forces across the United States, LV Impact being one of those task forces. What they cited as what needed to happen was they wanted the funds to be under the oversight of an elected body, in this case, city council, but whatever the case was, that was their stipulation, and task force simply didn't meet that requirement. At that point, LA Impact did approach the city. Obviously, the city is, a good represented a good partner in this case because of our relationship with them. Additionally, we also directly receive federal asset forfeiture funds, so we have the purchasing policy in place, the procedures in place, all of that was in place. So they approached us in that regard. This agreement did go before the executive committee for LA Impact at their June 6th meeting, and it was approved and formed, obviously subject to our discussion here. You will see several changes as a result of this agreement. I don't think any of them are very onerous or difficult to deal with, but the first change that would definitely come into play is that LA Impact's funds would now flow through the city's budget, being subject to appropriation by city council. Per the agreement, we would get something roughly May 15th, work this into the city budget itself. So that's the procedural process of it, but it would show up as additional funds in the city budget. I did put in the staff report, the average has been $4.7 million this year. Their federal, and keep in mind that LA Impact has a much larger budget that consists of other funds. We're specifically talking about their federal asset forfeiture funds that would flow through the city of Verne. Roughly $2.2 million this year, a little bit less than average, but still just to kind of give you a picture of what we're talking about. This would come into play that all of these payments for LA Impact would come under the purview of the city's purchasing policy, and this would be subject to review, probably would be handled by finance is the idea right now. LA Impact did at the same meeting amend their purchasing policy to generally conform with the city's policy, so we don't have any issues in that regard. The other thing you'll see, their disbursements on our registered audit demands that you approve each council meeting. So those are where it'll show up. There were a couple significant considerations that we went into also in this process. As far as additional liability to the city, that was obviously a consideration. So this was discussed with the California Joint Powers Insurance Authority and city attorney, and it doesn't seem that there would be an additional liability to the city in this regard. The other question is this would all fall under our single audit, which we are subject to. We did discuss this with city auditors. Other than the comments that this was kind of a unique situation, there were no concerns raised about whether there would be issues with the audit. The other, as far as staff time, we came to the conclusion that additional staff time needed would be minimized. A lot of this review is taking place at myself and then directly by you. So that's where a lot of the time is being spent, as opposed to just that we're already, as the fiduciary, processing the same number of transactions currently. The other thing was employees. LA Impact has their own leased employees. It's an outside staffing arrangement, so there's no additional employment. There's no employment involved per the terms of the contract. Those were the primary concerns that we saw going into this. This does provide a significant benefit to the city, in addition to allowing the task force to continue its operations and flow the funding through there so they can support our city operations as they have been. It does fund an additional police officer position, as was discussed by Chief Paz during the budget presentation a couple weeks ago. So essentially the agreement is beneficial to both the city and the task force, LA Impact. So we're recommending that be entered into. Now, if you have any questions inside of all of that, I will do my best.
So this is a very typical kind of, even though it's a unique situation, it's not unusual for this type of arrangement to happen, but it is incredibly complicated. My mind quickly takes me to a bunch of Venn diagrams, which makes the discussion much more enjoyable for a mathematician, but the rest of you may think it's odd or Picasso-esque. or abstract. But, so let me ask you a couple questions. Laverne already provides treasury services for LA Impact, so there's no change there,
That's
right?
correct.
This just means more money's gonna come through the treasury, the treasury department, and some of those funds are gonna, and many of those additional funds are not gonna be visible in our budget.
That is correct. We currently hold their funds as a fiduciary as their own separate item. They will
Right.
now be part of the
Which,
city's.
those existing funds don't show up anywhere on our audited books.
They show up as a separate schedule.
Okay.
And then
got
a
it,
treasury
okay.
report as a separate line.
Gotcha, okay, so they do show up and there's visibility to them, but we don't see them in our budgeting process.
Correct.
Whereas now we're gonna see an impact to our budget.
Correct.
Okay, so there's gonna be a change that everybody's gonna have to acknowledge that the budget's changed a little because of these monies. But because of all this, and because they can't do it themselves, we're getting an extra officer out of it.
Correct.
Awesome.
Well, I had many years ago taken a trip down with, at that time, our police chief down to LA Impact. Spent quite a few hours down there, very impressive. I recommend all of you, if you can schedule it. And so I'm in total support of this. What they do for the cities and task force, it's amazing.
Sure, you know probably more about anybody up here.
Well, without LA Impact, we don't impact the drug problem. Plain and simple. Without those resources, we're out of business when it comes to drug enforcement.
I'm just glad to see that the fact that you've got the state, I remember many years ago before I got on council, that asset forfeiture was a real tangled web as the funds were coming into different cities and how much. And it's nice to see the oversight that you have now between state and federal to have not a proper way, but an actual functioning way, accounting methods to be able to cut checks and it comes through our accounts properly so everyone can see what's going on. I think that's a great idea. So we see everything that comes through and goes out, and it's a proper accounting method. I think I think it's great. I really do.
I don't know about the proper accounting method, but I know with the changes in the laws, Laverne has not benefited as greatly and will not benefit as greatly with asset forfeiture. Asset forfeiture is drug money and automobiles and houses that are confiscated and are turned back over to the communities to fight additional drugs coming in. And it's probably a pretty small effort, but it's a huge effort on our part. I mean, it's not a small effort, it's a huge effort on a problem, and how much are we dealing with it, I don't know, but not our prior chief, but the chief before that, I think, helped organize this, Chief Ingalls. They retired about 16 years ago, and when it was set up, Laverne was selected as the community to help and monitor their books so that everybody, all the money got transferred through correctly and so forth. And we've been doing that for probably over 20 years. So this is just an additional request and approval for the same amount. And as Charlie said, they do an amazing job of trying to get drugs off the streets. So I know we've got some retired police officers. Terry's back there, so thank you for everything, and the police in the back. With that, I would accept, does anybody here have a comment that they would like to make in relationship to this item? We'll open it up to anybody that would like to do so. Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Vote please. Thank you. Okay, we will move to item D. Mayor Pro Tem Rosales.
Yes. In the past months, we have been faced with decisions to be made about a county study for our fire department and the feasibility of taking county services over our present fire department. This issue has been brought forth a number of times. The first time that it was brought forth, I thought it was a good idea, and I voted for it, along with Councilmember Muir. It was voted against and led by Councilmember Hepburn to not do the study. He was joined by Mayor Kendrick and Councilmember Carter. The very next day, I received a phone call indicating that we were going to revisit this same subject at the next meeting. Councilmember Hepburn had called and wanted to change his vote. So I contacted a number of people to determine what their opinions were about what we were doing, and also to seek out more information about county services. And I found out that our fire department and our wonderful professional paramedics could not be bifurcated. The county would take our fire department in total to service this community and take away our advanced life support paramedic unit. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, these guys are tremendous. They are the very best. So I looked at this and I thought to myself, you know what, maybe it's not such a good idea to even broach this. At the same time, being convicted to want to do the best for the city. I came up for a vote and I voted against the study. I was outvoted again. And now I've been asked to bring this forward once again so that we can find out what this study will provide us with. So in the interest of transparency, in the interest of finding out all that we can without having to spend taxpayer dollars from Laverne, I would like to make a motion that we conduct a study along with LA County Fire and the feasibility of what county services would cost and what they would provide. Would it be appropriate to make a motion on that?
I think we did, and I will second it. Well said.
Is this study gonna cost?
This first initial study does not cost anything. Beyond that, there could, but that would have to come back to council at that time.
I just want to say I, once again, will voice my opinion. I stand firm, as I've said from day one. I do not support this just because I don't feel we're going to get the quote accurate for apples. So I do ask that if this is voted on tonight and approved, it has to be for the exact services we get, for exact everything. You know, I want you to go through it and look at it because, you know, I worry they'll come in low and then later come in, you know, over the years, raise up their fees to us, but I cannot support it.
Let me just say this to answer part of your question. Our advanced life support paramedic unit transports to the hospital with life-saving equipment on board, and our paramedics are trained to administer pharmacy that no other paramedics in this state can do. LA County Fire has professional paramedics, but they cannot use with a pickup truck and a utility bed and make a phone call or have an ambulance en route. Our paramedics are already equipped with an ambulance, so it's not going to be the same service. So I want everyone to understand that when we take these votes, I am so convicted about this that it's hard for me to sleep sometimes at night thinking about what would happen if we lost our paramedics. I have such great respect and admiration for what they do. They save lives every year. Every year they save lives.
Every day.
Every second.
Well, I mean, these people are already gone.
Right.
And they bring them back. And that's what I mean about saving lives. So, to answer your question, it's not going to be apples and apples, orange and oranges. And having worked at Covina Police Department, and at the time our fire department was dissolved, and paramedic, and LA County Fire stepped in, professional organization. Those folks know how to go to a fire and take care of business. But the cost keeps going up every year. So we'll find all that out in this study. So let us get that and present it to you so that you can look at it. And you can determine whether you want apples and apples or oranges and oranges.
Okay, should we take a vote? Or does anybody want to discuss this? I see some nods out there, so if you'll please come forward to the podium. And if you would fill out a blue card, please.
Good evening, Council. My name is Terry Prentice. I live on Windward Street in Laverne. And in 1970, I made a lateral transfer from Barstow Police Department to Pomona Police Department. I retired from Pomona Police Department. During my time there, the city of Pomona elected to go with county. This is a decision that I know a lot of people there wish they could revisit. They cannot revisit it. It's done. Once you do it, it's over with. Recently, my wife was transported to the hospital with a possible heart attack here. It was done extremely professionally by our paramedics, and they are there. But as a police officer working in Pomona with both the city fire department and then LA County, it's a world of difference. Because when you're working with a department that is a part of the same organization that the police department is, you're all a part of the same, basically, family. There isn't a fragmented loyalty. Everything is for the protection of the public. Give me an example. One morning, about 1 o'clock in the morning, I got a call. I didn't work traffic, but I wasn't assigned to traffic. But you know, at night there aren't any traffic officers out. I got a call of an accident up on Northtown Avenue, where I got there, there's a pickup truck and run into the back of a parked semi-trailer. And the trailer gone in through the windshield, crushed the guy's chest. And I got there, checked him, and I'm sure Charlie had seen this too before, or heard it. You know when a person's chest is crushed because you hear the bubbles of the blood filling up in the lungs. That is generally terminal, and you cannot save him on the street. Immediately call for an ambulance. Ambulance got there, putting him on the deal, and I'm going around doing the measurements, taking photographs and all this stuff. LA County shows up, and they're still working on him. I walked over to the captain, and I said, hey, Captain, I said, we need to get this guy transported. I need to get the street opened up for transportation. He says, can't you see we're trying to save this man's life? And I say, yeah, I can see the three of you standing here with that life-saving technique of your thumb in your butt. I said, well, this guy's dying out here in the street. I said, now when I got here 20 minutes ago, there was already blood filling up in the guy's lungs. The only chance that guy had of survival, and it's slim, was being immediately transported. Now the accident investigation is done, and he is in your care and custody. If he dies out here in the street, you're going to wait 4 or 5 hours for the LA County coroner to get here. Now see, that wouldn't happen with the city firemen. They know, you work together, you know each other. I mean, a lot of those guys, I knew them, I knew their families, and they knew my family. We worked together, there was that working relationship. We didn't have divided loyalties there. So there's a lot more than dollars and cents. And when you get that initial deal, and I've heard this time and again, the initial cost, it's lowball. And when you go on budget after budget, and when you have a tough time, you have a tough economic situation, and you got to cut back some areas, that's one area you have no control over, because they're going to do what they want to do, and they're going to bill you. And now every other department in the city is going to have to suffer for it, instead of being able to say, well, we can postpone a major purchase of a piece of equipment or something like this for another year. You know, you don't have that opportunity. So I'm totally opposed to changing. We have a great fire department. guys that I respect tremendously, and the paramedics. And we have a lot of older people, such as myself, who, when that 911 call comes out, they get there, and they can transport like that, instead of having to get there, make the evaluation, then turn around and call for an ambulance. Those are seconds that are lost that may be the difference between life and death. Thank you.
Thank you. A moment has since closed the station, fire station. So, anybody else would like to make comments? Jeff?
Yeah. County is famous for giving lost leaders needed cities to buy into their services. And the first thing that happens when they take over is you hand over everything. You give them your stations, you give them your equipment, you give them your personnel, and all the talent and knowledge of the city that goes with it. Then they get to make the decisions. Like the mayor just mentioned, they closed the station in Pomona. Station 3's gone if they're coming down. There's no question about it. So that is going to affect response rates right there, especially for those up in the north side. That is why we worked so hard to give them the Station 3. We've got a lot of residents up there, a lot of new development since that station's come online. And if we go county, there's no turning back. We have no talent left. We have no equipment. We have no stations. They own them. Just like was mentioned about Pomona. They can't go back because they don't have the resources left to go back. And so it would be a death knell to the quality of service that we have become accustomed to in this city. From the response rates, the ability to offer services that are not available in other cities. We have great equipment, we've got great personnel, and we're right next to the biggest trauma center in the county. One of them anyway, at Pomona Valley. So anything we do to change that equation is going to ruin our service. And I understand that some of the firefighters would like to go county because I think they can make some more money. But there's some non-monetary benefit here. If they're here in Laverne, they're dealing with the same people, like you mentioned. You got relationships with police, you got relationships with the community. And we also don't have hundreds or thousands of homeless people with diseases that have been essentially abolished in the United States until recently, that they are at risk of catching when they're dealing with them, or taking home to their families, even worse. There's a lot of value from the firefighter standpoint to know where they're going to work today. And that is of great value as well. I think that even flirting with a quote out of county is just a bad step, because they're going to come in with a low number and it's going to look tempting, and then the council's going to look bad wasting money not taking them up on that. And it's a bad decision all around. So I strongly discourage from that.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to make a comment on this issue? Go ahead.
My dad worked for LA County for years, and he always spoke very highly of Laverne, and he lived here in Laverne. So I say, don't mess with a good thing. Just leave it as it is, forget the study, move on, keep it here.
Thank you.
You're not gaining nothing, you're losing.
Anybody else? Great.
This is kind of a personal thing for me. My grandfather was a volunteer fireman in Laverne. His brother, one of his brothers was. My father started as a volunteer and served, retired as a fire captain, one of the first paid firemen in the city. And when I was a kid, there were 2 firemen on duty during the day and only one paid fireman at night. And my dad would bring the fire truck home for dinner. And if he got a call, he would run out and go do that. Obviously, the department has changed incredibly since then with the advent of the bringing the paramedic program in-house from private contractors, the way it started. We have an amazing professional organization. And I think it really comes down to a question of two things. And there's the cost and there's the service. The cost, as we've heard, you can play with the numbers, you can talk about levels of service, number of stations, number of personnel. But the level of service, I've yet to hear anybody, and questions about going county with the fire started 30 years ago. It's not a brand new thing. Level of service has never been questioned. At the level of service, what is it, 85% of the fire department's calls are medic calls. And so if we have a large fire call, we have counties surrounding us, we have mutual aid packs, so we can access whatever we need immediately, as quick as I would guess if we had them in our city. But when it comes to medical, that affects virtually everybody in our city. And those minutes do matter. I live down on 2nd Street. I can't tell you how many times a day I hear sirens of LA County Fire running through on Arrow Highway on Benite Avenue going to Claremont. I don't want to wait for an ambulance or a paramedic unit coming from a neighboring city. So if it's strictly a matter of cost, maybe there's something that could be saved at least in the short term. But when it comes to service, opening the door to this, I think, is a fool's errand. And I think we ought to be very thankful we have the level of service we have, which really is an envy, I think, throughout the state. So, thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Anybody else like to address this?
My name is Matt Zavato, so I live on Sedalia. I feel the same as everyone else. I disagree with it. I can't tell you how much I disagree with it. I feel like we're going shopping for a car we don't want to buy. We're just going out to shop because I don't know. I think it was really telling. I think it was whatever the last meeting was when Mr. Hepburn brought up this. One of the other council members asked, "Do you know one resident that wants this?" And Tim did not answer the question. He changed the subject and said he talked to the fire chief, he talked to other people, but he never gave a name of one resident that wants this. And I think that, to me, I don't know if everyone caught that, but to me, that was really telling. Why is there not one resident, one name that someone can say that wants county fire or wants a quote? Because we're not going to get apples to apples. To get an apples to apples quote is to tell Laverne, to tell LA County Fire, we want you to change your whole department. Well, that's not going to happen. We're going to get how LA County Fire would do fire service in Laverne. And it could be drastically cheaper. And then there's going to be people that are going to come and, you know, speak very poorly about you guys because you're not doing that. Because they have an opportunity to save $3 million a year. And, you know, I love the fire department. I don't want to see them go anywhere. I consider a lot of my friends. You know, when I call the fire department, I want Captain Wilton to show up at my house. And I want to know who's coming, and we're willing to pay for that. I think the city's willing to pay for that. So I'm against it 100% that we should even entertain it. Thank you, Matt.
Anybody else? Okay, back here. Jim, do you have any thoughts?
I think we've said enough about it.
I'll say something if you want, before you go.
Okay.
I think tonight's conversation is an important conversation that I had not heard as well articulated until this evening. I think we need to have more conversations like this. I understand that there's a tough decision that needs to be made. Needs to be made today, needs to be made tomorrow, in a few months, in a few years. We're going to need to continue to have this conversation and recognize the difference between expenses or cost and value. That's not an easy discussion to have, and it's not a discussion to have once and then say we're done with it. So this is a conversation that we're gonna have over and over and over again, because as a community, we need to be in conversation. I don't feel as though this study, the information from this study is a slippery slope. I do understand that this study will help to illuminate the challenges that we face financially as well as value of service. I also am not blind to the fact that we're also going out with a tax measure potentially to help augment the amount of revenue that we have to pay for such services. These are serious decisions that need to be made. There are serious discussions that need to be continued to have. I'm invigorated by tonight's discussion, and I think we need to move forward with this in the full light of day, rather than just assuming that we can say, we made that decision, we're moving forward. So I'm still in favor of having this information brought to council.
On the line of transparency, as Mr. Rosales stated, this is strictly a study. Residents are going to make the decision what we do, and they'll let us know what we're supposed to do. But it's probably good business to just say, where are we at? What are we paying for services? I enjoy the fire services just like everybody else here does, but I think that to do our job, it's not an easy one. This is not easy for any of us, but to bring the transparency out so people see the costs. The residents will make the decision on what services they want and what they want to pay for. We will only be the conduit for you people to move on. That is all. We are not making the decision, we're giving it to everyone to look at, and that's strictly what it is to look at the cost. And you're going to make the decisions what we do.
I think the ultimate transparency is talking to people and asking what they think. We've heard some great comments tonight. I have not heard one person say anything positive about having LA Fire in Laverne. We have a fabulous group of firefighters that service the residents in this city better than any other city, in my opinion, there is. I talked to somebody after church yesterday, and he said, Don, whatever it is, don't go out, we'll pay for it. And I said, there's a tax measure on the horizon. And he said, count me in. Because I think that's the ultimate that we're gonna hopefully get is a positive response on that tax measure, and we can go forward with what we have. But at this time, we'll take a vote. And we have a motion and a second on doing the study. Vote, please. Okay. We will move to item E, and this is Councilmember Carter. Request for announcements of community and special events. Rob?
Yes. A couple months ago, or a couple meetings ago, I had brought to the council a request, and then we gave direction to Bob Russi, our city manager, to research and get some information for us. And the topic is to move announcements, just announcements, to the beginning of the meeting. And the whole idea is so that people such as our library, George, you know, he works all day. To have him come here, sit through a whole meeting to say what he wants to say, well, what do we notice? Most people have left. Important messages, I feel, should be at the beginning of the meeting, and no more than, we set the time. I say no more than a, quick, 2-minute announcement, no more than 2-minute, a quick announcement, and they can say what's going on in the community. So our city manager researched it and came back with some ideas. And one that I really think says it all, and I'd like to make that recommendation, and it says this. The title is Announcements of Upcoming Community Events. So that would be the only thing that would be talked about. And that is, any person who wishes to make a brief announcement of a future community event that is open to the general public may do so at this time. And that's what you would, say, Dawn, before each person spoke. But the benefit to that is, such as our historical society or anyone that has something coming up, downtown merchants have a, wine walk. they can talk about that quickly at the beginning of the meeting, and everybody hears it. So I think it'd be a good improvement to our agenda.
Thoughts?
Well, I'm happy to second that motion, because I would like to see those announcements, excuse me, it's been a long night already, those announcements made before we have a recess. Because when we have special presentations, especially to, athletic teams or other teams or groups of people that are being recognized, it'd be nice to have announcements that they can hear too before they
Exactly,
leave.
yes.
So yes, I'm in favor of that. I just hope George can speak fast enough. Because 2 minute, he was probably really happy until you said 2 minutes. Because he usually has a nice long list of things that are going.
You're over 2 minutes.
I'm not limited to 2 minutes.
George loves to be here with us. Yeah, right.
I agree. I think it's a great idea, and I do support that. I'll second the second.
Is 2 minutes enough?
I think 3 minutes. I think 2 to 3 minutes.
Start
See how it works.
Let's start.
Okay.
2 minutes, you're hardly getting your thoughts together.
Got a motion, a second. Give a vote, please.
Do you want to open it or no?
Does anybody have any thoughts about disagreeing with this?
Thoughts about the thoughts?
Okay,
Okay, we'll bring it back up.
Great idea. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Bob, for your
Thank you.
help on this. Move into public comment. This is time set aside for items not on the agenda this evening. Once you speak, if you would please fill out a blue card, or if you happen to do that ahead of time, that's okay. You can hand it to our city clerk, and we'll begin with you, sir.
Yes, good evening. My name is Mark Peterson, and I just want to thank you, Mayor, council members, and staff. My issue isn't as big as the firefighters, and it's not life or death, but I've lived here in Laverne for about 17 years, and I just moved in February to Laverne, so I only moved a couple miles away. And I believe in due diligence and having an opportunity to meet my neighbors before I move in. The neighbors on my left and right are fabulous. The neighbor behind me, I left liking that neighbor, and I can't say I'm fond of him, so I don't know if he's here tonight or she, but I live right behind the country club, Sierra Laverne Country Club. And over the weekend, I look at the lake right behind the house, and I thoroughly enjoy that. Barbecuing for Father's Day was a wonderful thing. And then I get a call when I'm in court for a different issue this morning from my wife saying, things aren't good, call me when you can, which you never want to see. Well, they're putting up this orange safety construction type fence between my house and the country club earlier this morning. So I didn't have a chance to meet that neighbor. That's one that I'm not real fond of right now. I believe in private property rights. I think that if you own something, you should be able to do with it. But I think we also have to abide by zoning laws, and I did due diligence before I purchased that property. I came down here and talked to the planning department, and they said there's only 3 lots for that, probably 130 acres or so. And you can't build on it, but if you could, it would be 1 house per lot, and some of it has, 4 lots. So you could build, you can't even build 4 because some of it's in a flood zone. But when I had a chance to look up this owner and see what he's done in the past, because he owns other country clubs, I just want to try to do something prior to the point where it gets really nasty and ugly, because what he's done in Chino Hills, what he's done, I believe, in San Diego area, he lets everything die. So then all you have is dirt, and he puts up a very unattractive fence in hopes that he can wear everybody out and then do a residential development, is my understanding. So I guess what I'm looking for is any guidance or suggestions that the city might have prior to the time. I don't want to be reactive. I'd rather do something prior to the point. And like I said, if he can't do anything with his land, hopefully he already knows that. The purchase price was quite good, but I think that's because of what it's zoned for. I think it was $3.65 million he paid for it just 3 years ago. So I'm just hoping to get some advice and guidance on what can and can't be done. I know if he doesn't want to water, he can cut that off, but it's a shame to see something that's a community, and I'm not even a member there, I'm a member at Glendora. I wouldn't mind joining here, but a little bit scared to do that now.
Too late. I would encourage you to get the entire backstory. This is actually an issue we've been dealing with the better part of 6 months to a year. But Eric Shear over there, our Community Development Director, can certainly give you the history of what's going on. We're aware of the situation that is occurring there. For the benefit of the council, we have sent a letter, had our city attorney send a letter kind of outlining some of the expectations that we will have of the owner should he choose to close the golf course, which is something we have heard may be occurring in the next 45 days. And the fence is one of those indications that that may be coming. But we have reached out to them to try and mitigate some of those issues. But as far as the whole story, rather than giving it to you all here of what we've done, I would get with Eric Shear and he can help enlighten.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bart.
Hi, Robin Walker, Sherwood Drive. I'm also here for this issue. So today, I heard some loud thumping and went out to my backyard and found men up against my backyard putting in stakes. And I said, what are you doing? And they said, we're putting in a fence. So I literally threw on my clothes, ran down here and went to the planning and said, what's going on? And they kind of knew a little bit because it sounds like they had inquired about it, the fence company. But they had just given them the steps to take to put in a chain link fence. So I guess he decided to find himself a loophole and put in this 3-foot ugly orange mesh fence. So I have a white sort of picket fence to overlook the view of the golf course, and now I'm looking at orange. They first said it was going to be 12 inches from my property, and so then I started measuring because I noticed that, and by the way, I have a slope, so he could put it down here and I didn't want to see it, so he could, but no, he wanted to put it nice and close to my fence so that I get to view orange. It's harassment, it's what he's doing it for, it's not going to do anything. We knew this was going to happen. Any of us that investigated this developer knew that he wasn't really wanting to sell the property, that this was his plan all along if you just look at his MO. So we're really kind of reactive, and I'm concerned because I want to know proactively what we're going to do because, okay, so we have a 3-foot, anything over 3 foot, you got a permit. Well, what about linear feet? Why can he put 2,000, 3,000 linear feet of orange ugly construction mesh up all over the country club? And for how long? 5 years? He can just do this? We're not gonna have a code or an ordinance, or I don't know, I don't have the proper lingo to combat what this guy's got planned. So we know he's gonna take the trees out soon, because if you read what he does, he starts removing all the indigenous trees and ruining the land. So we know that in order for him to do any kind of construction, he's gonna have to go up and down Wheeler, Verde Country Club, Esperanza, pretty much, right? So he'll have huge pieces, let's say if he got his way. So I feel like what are the proactive things that you guys can do to stop a developer from bullying you into doing this project? Because that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna, in the past, he put chicken manure, and yeah, he didn't care that he was fined over $100,000. Well, boy, wouldn't that be nice? So that means he's very, very rich, that he knew he was gonna be fined by the environmentalists. And is that what he has in store for me? The dust, what does he have in store for the families that live there and their kids have, asthma, and they never dreamed of having to deal with the kind of dust that would do to that area, the kind of, or the equipment that's gonna be having to be going up and down, and for the people that live on those streets. So I'm just asking that you all come together and maybe come up, let's get into a proactive stance of codes or something for somebody that is gonna start pulling what we know that he's gonna he's gonna pull and bullying our city into doing something, because I was here before and I'm here going, okay, this is exactly what we knew he was gonna do, and he did it, and he found a loophole. So why are you, is there if that's a construction temporary orange, there's no code on linear feet as far as, he could do this, 3,000 feet, linear feet around, I don't know what the linear feet is around this golf course, probably more than that. For any given time, is there any code to say, hey, it's temporary 1 month, or get it out of here, or can he do it for 5 years?
Bob, do you want to answer that?
I don't know what a particular time frame is. As I said, we have passed this new information on to our attorney's office. They're actually coming out tomorrow. And we'll be doing a site inspection up there as well to see if there's anything we can do relative to that. I do not honestly know offhand if there is, just to be honest. It was about height, it wasn't about length, is the restrictions that exist.
Because he also, my dad lives here in Laverne also, and he inquired and he said, yeah, we came from San Diego, so they're not a local fence company, they came from San Diego, and that they're gonna come back real soon, stay for a week, and finish. So, more to come for those that think that it's not gonna affect their property. Maybe we get to get a nice view of it going down Golden Hills, and it's not even that, it's just the fact that he's doing it for harassment's sake. So he's bringing on the fight. So that tells you that, I mean, 'cause why would you do that? Everybody has property fences. So anyway, I'm here to say, okay, let's be proactive and beg you that you maybe put your heads together and come up with something that will prevent somebody from slowly destroying the land, knowing full well what he has a playbook that we all can read online. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Anybody else like to address? George?
Good evening, Mayor, council members, city staff, Laverne residents. Actually have a crowd tonight. There's a lot of things going on at the library for the month of June. Last Friday, our summer reading program started. It's actually called Summer Discovery Program, and it's going to be running through from June 14th through August 3rd. There's going to be a program every single Friday from 2 to 3. It's for all ages, and we invite the community to come out and enjoy those programs. There are different variety, different performers, different subjects, so please come on out and enjoy those. Also, because we have the summer reading program, we're also looking for volunteers to help us man the registration booths, to take care of all the paperwork. It's a perfect opportunity for teens to get some community service. It's open to teens from 14 to 18 years of age. So please come on to the library, talk to Tom, who's our volunteer coordinator, and he'll see where he can fit you into the schedule. Now, we are having the Summer Discovery Program. We also have a Summer Discovery Program for adults, but it is online. And that's already started June 3rd, but it is running through August 3rd. So anybody who's interested can get on to set up an account, register, and start reading and winning prizes. As part of the Friday programs, on Friday, June 21st from 2 to 3, we're going to have a party puppet show. The performer is going to conduct a variety show involving puppets and singing and dancing. And again, those are all open to all ages. On Thursday, June 27th from 6 to 7, we are having a book party, Fancy Party Gowns. We're going to be reading the story Fancy Party Gowns. It's a book written by Anne Cole Lowe, who's an African-American author, and she talks about her trials and tribulations in trying to pursue her career in fashion design. So we'll read the story, and then we'll conduct a craft activity afterwards. On Friday, June 28th, from 2 to 3 again, we're going to have Cowboy Ken, ropes, tricks, songs, and story. The title kind of tells what it's all going to be about. Cowboy Ken will talk about the American Old West, and he will be using cowboy tricks, ropes, and stories to tell about the Old West. So that's what's going on in our library in June, so please come on out. Everybody's invited. I think there's something for everything there. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
George, is this on the website, so if
Yes, it
someone
is.
missed the
Yes, it
date?
is.
What's the website?
Yes.
What is it?
LA County, oh geez. LAcounty.org.
Thank you.
And that was only 2.5 minutes.
Keep it down to 2, Charlie.
I had him closer to 3, so you're very kind.
You spoke so fast. Okay, anybody else like to speak? Yes, Anna.
I just have a question for the staff. Can we start making, well, first I want to say that everybody who lives or on that golf course, we all had a specific plan. And in the specific plan, it states that those homes up there were supposed to be built to the hillside standards, okay, of Laverne. And if you look at the hillside standards, there's a lot of things in there that those builders had to do to build those homes. And one of the things was it was supposed to maintain a view of that area. Now, if somebody's gonna come and put an orange fence, okay, that kind of takes away from the aesthetics up there. It's just like you live in a homeowners association. You know, you don't put up orange fences because it takes away from the beauty of the area. So can we make some new codes to stop these kind of things from happening in the future? I mean, that area should, when you put a fence up, it should blend in with the rest of the neighborhood. It should blend in with the houses up there. Just like when you live in an association, you don't get to say, I want to put an orange fence up, and you put an orange fence up. It's like, no, you can't put an orange fence up because we have CC&Rs. So if you have municipal codes, I think we should look at those municipal codes and look at the hillside standards and see if this guy is violating those hillside standards up there. Because everybody, not just in my neighborhood of Sierra Laverne, all down Country Club, all those areas were all called the Sierra Laverne specific code, specific plans. And those plans are still enforced right now, unless the city changes them. And I've checked, and those plans are enforced. So somebody needs to look at those specific plans and see if this guy is violating the hillside standards up there. And there's a lot of hillside standards to go by, because that's how those homes were built. When we bought them, that was the agreement that those standards were going to stay in place, and as far as I know, the city hasn't changed them. So how do you, Mr. Russi, how do you...
It's public comment. I can't answer.
We can't.
I'm talking to Mr. Russi. Can we...
You talk to the mayor.
Yeah.
I can talk to you?
We can't answer, but.
Would you like me to
Yes, I would.
Yes. The process, that's why I said the city attorney is going out there to do an inspection tomorrow to see. So we are going to go back and evaluate what, if anything, under our current, whether it be codes, and I can tell you under the current codes as it relates to the fencing, there isn't anything there that we can enforce. However, we are going to evaluate what it is that we can, if anything, at this point.
Okay, I think you should also look at the specific plans up there.
Well,
Also, because those houses were built, and those plans have not changed.
Those are the conditions of the houses. The conditions of the golf course predate that.
Okay,
Still-
but can they, okay, can we make new municipal codes? That's what I'm asking.
There are certain maintenance codes we cannot change the conditional use requirements that are on the golf course itself.
Okay.
Because they were adopted under that previous resolution that was provided by council to them, which didn't get into irrigation and some of the other things that in hindsight you wish would have been included. They're not. There are maintenance requirements that do exist in code that we are certainly made them aware of, that we will hold them to that standard. That certainly could come up for dispute in a legal action, but that's the direction and the information that we've shared with the owner.
Okay, well, this like, these people have an orange fence going up right on their fence. Well, they're harassing them. And that's just like, you're taking the beauty away from the area up there. And I think there must be something in there where it says, okay, if you want to put a fence up, it can't be orange. Okay, maybe a fence, or, you know, like any other code, before you start putting stuff up that is an eyesore, because that's just an eyesore. And that's not how that whole area was made. We have a specific plan for that area, and I think if you read the hillside standards, you'll see a lot of stuff in there you might be able to use. Okay?
Thanks, Anna. Jeff?
I'm hearing a lot of questions thrown at you about the Sierra Laverne issue. I got an answer for you. If there is somebody in the community that complains about your property because you have not been keeping it up, the police department will send you a letter to give you notice that if you don't get it compliant, then they will send somebody out, take care of it, and bill you for it. If these people that live along Sierra Laverne complain about them not taking care of that property, then our police department should be sending them letters that we are going to take care of it and maintain the standard that it has been accustomed to, and follow through with that. It may cost us a lot of money, but we will be billing him for every penny of it. And also mentioned trees coming out. It's not legal to take out a lot of those trees. When the community right here behind the movie theater was put in, there were a bunch of trees that they had to build around. And it's unlawful to take out indigenous established trees. And they should be put on notice for that as well. So if they start ruining the aesthetic by taking out trees, there should be actions following up. They should have to pay for replacing those trees with similar sized trees, which is not cheap. And if you put them on notice ahead of time that this is coming down, then hopefully we can stop them from doing it in the first place.
Thank you, Jeff.
Oh, and one other thing I want to throw out there. If they are not taking care of it, you also have a fire issue. There's brush clearance regulations, and it's their property, they're responsible for it. And that becomes a big fire hazard if they start not taking care of their property.
I want to talk about another mess. Wheeler and Foothill, a restaurant there. What are they going to do with that? And when is it going to start? And what is it going to be?
I will turn to Eric Shear. I know that there's an application process.
So the property owner has submitted plans to the building department to construct a new building there. That would be for a drive-through Taco Bell restaurant.
Oh, just what we really need. There's got to be a rule against that. We got Mexican restaurants all in that one little area over there. We don't need another one.
It's better than an eyesore.
Just tear the whole thing down and put a parking lot. Thank you.
This is public comment. Anybody else would like to address an item that's not on the agenda? Okay. We'll move to item 8. Council comments. Tim, you want to start?
Just a second, Mr. Mayor, let me just add one thing. The comments that have been made. No. Going back to Sierra Laverne, those were all the things in the city attorney letter that was sent to them that had to do with maintenance, with weed abatement. All of those aspects were pointed out, so they were put on notice. That was the proactive step that we did take once we were made aware that it looked like that the golf course was potentially going to close. Because we have been following the issue as far as the events that have unfolded in other communities and trying to do the best we can. We also have to remain very cautious because overstepping could result in the city being drawn into a legal action that we do not want to promote. We want to do what we can to defend and protect to the best ability that we can, but we also have to be careful to not jeopardize our ability, us being put in a legal action unnecessarily. No, I'm not.
Tim wants to talk.
Under public comment, through the Brown Act, the city council cannot respond. We can ask staff to respond, but unfortunately we cannot respond publicly to your comments. And I know that we have been spending, all of us have been spending a lot of energy trying to help with this situation. We've all read the same articles that you have. We're disgusted with it, but at the same time, we know that our hands are a little tied right now, but this is not a forgotten effort. Charlie Rosales is a member of Sierra Laverne, so he's really been keeping up with it and making sure that we can do everything we can to help our residents. So you're not forgotten. Okay, Tim.
Graduations, we've had multiple graduations, and thank goodness everything went without a hitch, thanks to police, thanks to our staff at our schools. They did a fantastic job. We did Ramona Middle School. It was 42 minutes for graduating class. Is there 400 kids?
Over 400.
Over 400 children, 42 minutes from start to finish. They invite the council, which is really cool, and it's under the shade structure now, but this was the quickest we've ever had it ever. So it's just, anyway, great job to everybody. Mickey's Jewelry Studio has been named, Rose, I can't talk about it, or?
You can talk,
You don't know?
you can't talk about it.
That was, never mind. On another note, you just broke my total thought.
Sorry.
I can talk about you, though.
Okay, I guess.
The city manager steering committee, weren't you not appointed to the chairman of the city manager? Go ahead and explain. I'm putting you on the spot.
Thank you very much.
Roy,
The
I got him tonight again. Thank you.
city manager's technical advisory committee for the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments. I am the chair of that particular committee for the next year. I'm also the president of the San Gabriel Valley City Managers Association, which is a separate authority duty that I'll be getting on that stuff out of the way here. So representing Laverne and San Gabriel Valley as best I can.
So is that?
Thank you.
No, I've nothing to add.
Far be it for me to talk.
Well, I have something to say. Actually, mine is quite important here. I want to share with the public beyond here. So I'm so glad you were videotaping. Thank you very much, because this is important news for the community to hear. July 10th is the big meeting with the Gold Line for White Avenue. I know a lot of you know about that. And I don't know if you know this, I am the vice chair of the Construction Authority. So I am a voting member of the Construction Authority that would be voting on this issue for White Avenue and the whole SEIR, which is the Supplemental Environmental Impact Report. And I was really looking forward to representing our city in speaking, because I have heard from many, many residents. All of us have heard, and I want you to know we listen. We take what you say. It is all of our city, so we care about what your impact is. But I have to say at this time, unfortunately, I have to recuse myself from the meeting. I was informed the other day by our attorney from the Construction Authority. I'll be at the meeting to open it, but after that I have to step out because I have a conflict, because the SEIR represents Laverne and Pomona. If you remember from the meeting we had, it's the Pomona Station and Laverne White Avenue that are the two areas that we have concern with in this SEIR. And I own property next to the Gold Line Station in Pomona, so they just informed me that I have to not be able to be at that meeting. But I want you to know that the city, even though we haven't voted to take a stance, we've listened, and the city sent a letter requesting Gold Line to ask the PUC, which is a Public Utilities Commission, to look at it, look at the minimal amount of impact to our residents on White Avenue. That's all we could do from our perspective. But I have talked to all my colleagues on the committee for the Gold Line construction, and I let them know how I feel, which is I do not feel that the widening should happen at this time because the residents don't want it on White Avenue. But to look at options. People that lived in that area were at the meeting, signed up for emails, received a letter from Gold Line that they did take into consideration all the letters they've gotten, and they are looking at that too. So, making a recommendation, and we'll see what the board does that day to change the lanes. So it'd be two lanes going north, one south, and so in one lane in the middle. So I just want you to know that people are in that same arena, understanding what Laverne wants in our city. So that's important. If you can be there July 10th, I recommend you go. speak. They're gonna have overflow into the other 2 rooms, and, you know, and then you'll get a letter after the effect for anyone that lives on White Avenue of what the decision was.
Time of the meeting.
The time of the meeting, actually, we moved it up to 8:30 in the morning, which of course that's going traffic to, you know, Monrovia. But it's at the Gold Line station, and if you need the address, you know, I can give that to you, or the city can give that to you. But 8:30 in the morning, and they're expecting it to last about 4 that afternoon. So that's a whole day's work.
Mr. Mayor, before you do,
Yes.
I didn't want to, and I forgot an announcement that actually Gold Line had asked me to pass on, and that's regarding the testing, the signal testing. That will again be this Sunday, the 23rd, between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. And they'll be bringing down, they did this earlier this month, this will be the second, and should be the last testing that they do regarding the intersections. But it will affect all intersections from San Dimas Canyon Road through to Fulton, and they'll be down from 3 to 5 minutes in each turn. It'll probably be an hour in between each sequencing, but just want everybody to be aware they can affect larger delays. We'll be putting this up on our website as well.
Thank you. I have 3 things. One is, our city manager kind of said it was no big deal, and he was getting all of his leadership stuff all the way in 1 year, but I think that the other city managers in the San Gabriel Valley understand the leadership ability that our city manager has. And I appreciate you being here and not only showing leadership in this community, but others as well, so thank you. Friday night, last Friday night was an event that's the 2nd annual event, and that was the Police Awards Banquet at University of Laverne at 5 o'clock, and we celebrated 3 people on the police department that saved lives. And they were given an award, and I appreciate the police department's thought about doing this. It is absolutely spectacular to say thank you. And one of the lives that was saved was there, and Adam just was thrilled to death. You couldn't get the smile off his face, but anyway, thank you for that. And yesterday, first of all, happy Father's Day to each and every one of you that's a dad. The second thing is, Father's Day also represents the first evening of concerts in the park. And that took place at our Heritage Park, there on Vita Mansion. There was musicians there that I'm not sure we've ever had that quality in Laverne before. It was a swinging band. It was called Fat Cat Swinging.
They've been there before.
I know they have, and I've seen them before, but these were, I think they sent the best of the best. I think it's a group that they just pick out. There was 9 people on stage, and it was absolutely spectacular. My wife and I don't always stay for the whole time, but not only did we stayed for the encore, and we'd have stayed longer if they were that good. So it's absolutely fabulous. There's 4 more concerts every other week, starting last night, ending with the answer on August 11th. Also, the 4th of July parade is coming up. 4th of July celebration day is coming up. And that's going to start off with our Boy Scout pancake breakfast. It's going to go into our motorcycle that Jeff Basker, you've heard tonight, helped start with 200 Harleys. They have a program with Raising the Flag, patriotic celebration. The 200 Harleys run down a 2.4 mile an hour parade route. It's absolutely spectacular. Followed by the parade at 10 o'clock with over 100 entries. Then the Rotary does a watermelon feed out there on the grass at Rutland Elementary School, followed by a country fair that Yvonne leads. Thank you very much, Yvonne, for that, for all the kids and so forth. And there's other booths. There's a council corner if you have questions of council. We'll be there for several hours to answer questions that you might have. Followed at, I think it's 4 o'clock, is a deep pit barbecue at the Methodist Church. And if you're heading for the stadium, grab your deep pit barbecue. They'll put it in a container for you. You go over and enjoy the fireworks show. Gates open at 6. The show from the answer starts at 7, and fireworks begin about 9 o'clock. The stadium will be done enough to get us in. It's not gonna be complete. Did anybody see that short crane that was up?
Yes.
Holy mackerel, I've never seen a larger crane in my life, I don't think. I've
For
seen
something that's not 4 stories tall or taller.
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
tall cranes on tall buildings, but I've never seen anything in Laverne like that. But it was fabulous. The bleachers on the south side are getting completed. They won't be completed, I don't think, by the event, but you will be able, all the accesses will be open, all the parking will be available, and we're gonna have a great 4th of July, and then they'll finish the stadium before school starts. So that is it for me, and we are going to be adjourning to a planning commission interview and selection process. Started earlier today. We're going to be meeting on the 24th and 25th at 2 o'clock. We plan on July 1st meeting on Monday to be canceled because of lack of business, and our next scheduled city council meeting is scheduled for July 15th, right here in the council chambers at 6:30.
Huh?